I have the attendance sheet on my screen, and I think I shared it. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we know Jay is here.
Present.
Do we have Danny or John Marsh? Don't see them. We have Mark Hudson here for the City of Plant City.
Present.
And Jonathan Scott for City of Tampa.
Present.
I do not see either Nicole or Justin for Hart. We have Tony Garcia for the Planning Commission.
I am here.
All right, and then Jeff for the Environmental Protection Commission.
Yep, I'm here.
Mike Williams for the County Engineering. And Mike. Gina for the Aviation Authority.
I'm here.
Great. I have not seen either Leland or John Patrick. Have either of them shown up? No. I do not see Bob or Anna for the Expressway Authority. We do have Charles for the school board. We do not have anybody for Temple Terrace. We have Chris here for Barta.
Present.
I do not see either Mike or Abby for the streetcar. And then we have Rachel here for the health department.
Present.
Hey,
Alex,
Sarah.
are you able to get all that for the, oh, I see Danny. Danny's in the attendees column too, and she needs to be moved over to panelist as well.
Yeah, I don't have that as an option for Danny or Charles.
Are you guys doing the call-in only? You might need to do the actual go to webinar link. The call-in only won't allow you to be a panelist.
Danny needs to enter the audio pin 136.
Okay. Thanks for being patient with us while we get this going.
Hey, Sarah, this is Jeff. Just for the record, when you were calling Mike, he replied in the chat that he's here. So
Yes.
I'm guessing he's getting audio, but having trouble with, he's receiving audio, but having trouble hearing him. So he is here though.
Yes, and I see that Beth's been trying to give him pointers on how to get his audio going. Okay. I guess we should have gone ahead and start the recording, Jason.
I already did.
Okay, good. That's what I
All
thought.
right, so Danny should be able to talk now.
I still see her in the attendees list.
Yeah, it's like she entered.
Oh, and Nicole McClary is here now too. She needs to be moved over to the panelist.
Okay, I got Nicole.
And Danny, if you can hear us, you need to enter your audio pin. All right, Danny, can you hear us now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Now.
I do ask that when everybody is speaking, if you can speak into your microphones loudly, because this is being recorded.
Nicole, do you want to try your microphone?
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
Mike
Hey,
Williams.
Sarah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I think I can hear Mike Williams now as well.
Yes, I finally figured it out.
Okay.
Thanks to Beth. Thank you, Beth.
Great, thanks.
All right. Well, I guess we can go ahead and get going. Charles, if you have any questions, I guess you can email me. Or I'm not sure. Maybe, hopefully, we can try to figure out how to get you in on it. In the meantime,
Charles would be able to speak now.
can he?
Yeah, Charles, could you say something? Because he's unmuted and he should be able to be heard. Well, just move forward. Charles should be able to speak from the sentence.
Right. And just a warning, I'm going to probably mute myself during the presentations because my dog just woke up and he's probably going to be squeaking some toys in a second. So I guess we will go ahead and I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
Okay, great. All right, so this is Jeff Sims with Environmental Protection Commission, as you all know, welcoming you to today's version of the April TAC meeting. We appreciate everyone's patience. These are obviously strange times that we're living in, so there's an adjustment period, and I've sat in on several of these committee meetings, and MPO is doing a great job kind of figuring a workaround and getting better and better with each meeting, I think. So appreciation to everybody. So I guess we'll go forward. I don't believe there's any members of the public, but regardless, well, let me go over a couple items that they mentioned in the information that was provided. I believe everybody's got the raise hand button if you're part of the group here, so use that if you have an item during the presentations that you want to raise a question to, and then we'll call on you and wait for me to call on you, and we'll be happy to hear your comments. And then identify yourself prior to speaking. I think that's especially important given the circumstances with this. And also, most everybody's aware on the right-hand side, there's a chat feature where you can add, you can type in some questions if you like, and then they'll be tracked as we go along to be able to address those. So with that, we'll kind of get going with the normal protocol and ask if there's any members of the public present and if they would like to have any public comment at this time. Okay, it doesn't appear that there is any, so we will move forward following that, and that would be to the approval of the meeting minutes. So the March meeting minutes were in the agenda that was provided, so hopefully everybody's reviewed those. Do we have any comments or questions on the March minutes? Okay, that's good. So we need to approve them. Now, I noticed from last month that the February minutes were not approved. So I think the best scenario here to streamline it would be to ask for someone to make a motion to approve both the February and March minutes with one motion.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. This is Jonathan Scott.
Okay, do we have a second?
This is Nicole McCleary. I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah, you can probably help me out here. Normally, we would say all in favor, say aye. Are we going to go down the roll call to do that?
I think we can still do the all in favor aye, and if there's any nays, just have the nays identify themselves.
Okay. So all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any nays? Please, and if so, please identify yourself. Okay. So very good. That takes care of the formalities. So I guess we're ready to move on to the action items. And the first one is the TIP amendment from Vishaka.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. This is Jeff.
Yes. I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Yeah, I can share a screen here. So start with the presentation. Can you? Okay. This is Vishaka Shivraman for the record. And I'm going to be presenting the TIP amendments which are due for the April committees. Next slide, please. This time, as you can see, for the FY 1920, we are having 3 amendments which need to be processed. All 3 are new projects. The amendments are listed here as numbered 16, 17, and 18, and the FPN numbers are also shown here on the screen. Next slide, please. Just wanted to let you know, this is a map of the project, which is I-75 from north of 301, Progress Boulevard to Woodbury Road, which is north of State Road 60. This project will rehabilitate the existing pavement, ramps, and it'll rehabilitate for this portion, which is shown here in this map. The project is currently in the design phase, and this amendment will add around 1.75 million to year 2021 for construction. Next slide, please. This is just a comparative report. Since it's a new project, you wouldn't see any previous project in it. And I would like to show where the amount is displayed that 2021, we are adding 1.75 million, and the fund code is Advanced Construction ACNP funds. Next slide, please. Let me know if in any time you can't hear me. I'm hearing some click sound. So this is the next project, amendment number 17 this is actually part of the previous project which I showed you. That was 4436301, and this is 362. As you can see in the map here, this is northern of that portion from CSX Railroad crossing to Fowler Avenue. And this project also similarly adds fund about 1.76 million to FY 2021, and construction is anticipated in 2023. Next slide, please. As shown here previously, this is adding 1.76 million to year 2021, and it's the same fund code, Advanced Construction Funds. Next slide, please. The third amendment is actually for I-4 from east of McIntosh Road to County Line Road. It's a pretty long portion of I-4, and it includes repaving the interstate ramps, the frontage roads, and it also added. Oh my gosh, I lost. Okay, and between this section shown, this project is also currently in the design phase. The construction is anticipated, and it's about 3.87 million funds added to year 2021. Next slide, please. And this is again to show you the 2021 year, where we have added funds of 3.87 million. And with this, I think we can move to the next slide, which is to answer any of your questions. And if there's anything we can address here, please do so. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Vishaka. My first question, this is just trying to get clarity here. On amendments 16 and 17, they seem to be running, almost, are they abutting one another? Because they don't describe it. It describes it like there's a little gap there.
That's what I was trying to pull up in the map. The portion is as FDOT has provided, and maybe if you can see the map, this is from the, and I think the attachment is also on your TAC packet. It is what FDOT has provided. I think there is a little bit of gap, but it's two-part. It's almost like southern portion and northern portion of that same I-75.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there is an overlap. It's two separate sections, but.
Yeah, the description, because the description goes up to Woodbury and then the other one starting from Broadway. It just seemed weird that they wouldn't have them, you know, you're talking about a very small distance that they're part of the same project. That's fine. I was just curious. Do we have any other?
Yeah, because the project title is what they have provided, and this is what I got from them. As usually FDOT is the one who provides this information, but if there is something if it's right next to each other, maybe I will check back, and if there's any change in that, I will update you on that. Let me check back with them unless there's somebody from FDOT to answer.
Okay, it's not. I was more of a curiosity. It just seemed like they wouldn't have two of them that, you know.
Yeah, I thought about it,
yeah.
and that was my question too. If it is part of, because the numbers are also adjacent and the locations look adjacent too, but it's not. It's not.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions from the community? No other questions? Last chance. I'm sorry?
No questions from me.
Okay. All right. I don't see any raised hands or anything in the chat. So I'm kind of slowly delaying this along to make sure that we don't have anybody that pops up. So that's good. And with that, I guess we are going to need a motion to approve the amendments for the 1922.
This is Jay Collins. I'll make a motion to approve the TIP amendment as proposed.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Second, this is Rachel Chase.
Okay, Rachel, thank you for that. So with that, I guess we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 I guess it would almost be easier to just ask, is there any opposed? And please state such. Again, I'm giving a few seconds just to make sure everybody has their chance to raise their hand. So it's unanimous. So with that, I think we can go forward. Thank you for talking.
Thank you all.
Okay, very good. All right, the next item up is the 2021 Unified and Planning Work Program by Allison. And before she gets started, I think one thing I wanted to point out with this one, because I've sat through this before, is their recommended action for this is they really want comment and guidance from the committee on before they go forward next month. So it's not so much emotion as I think they just want input. So if anybody has anything they want to provide at the end, I'd really encourage them to voice that at that point. So with that, Allison, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. I'll turn my camera on just in case you want us. And if it doesn't come on, all right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Allison Ye with the MPO staff as well. And this item before you is the fiscal year 2021, fiscal year 2022 Unified Planning Work Program. We typically call it the UPWP. Next slide, please. Oh, not sure she can hear me. Next slide, please. Do I have control of it by chance? No, right? Okay, thank you.
Which slide do you want? I did the next.
This is no, it's there's a delay. So can you go back to the previous slide?
I'm on slide 2.
I just leave it on here. I can talk through it. So the document is a 2-year document that we do a major update on every 2 years, and this one will start July 1st, 2020, and run through June 30th, 2022. It is our compliance document, so it will outline all our major planning tasks, document what we need for state and federal funding, and coordinate that funding between the MPO, HART, and DOT. Next slide, please. We have a new cover, by the way, from the last document. Before we jump into the projects for the new plan, just want to do a quick recap on what we've been up to the last two fiscal years, just the major projects. There's actually a lot more than what's listed here. But one thing that we've all been involved in is the update of the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan, everything from the data analysis, multiple levels of that, to outreach, documentation, and compliance. You've also come before you the air quality benefits of green noise walls, as well as the county management study, which is part of the Vision Zero implementation, the TD planning for the community transportation coordinator evaluation, the greenways and trails and bike and walk feasibility studies, as well as a part 2 study for the HART South Shore transit reevaluation. We continue to maintain and update our health atlas that's online, as well as the multimodal level of service and methodology review. We also continue to do our public participation plan and measures of effectiveness report and our regional coordination with our partners. You've also come before you the Resilient Tampa Bay Transportation Pilot, as well as the school transportation study and the state of the system report. There was a low-speed network study in Temple Terrace and a USF campus autonomous vehicle feasibility study, and of course, our Vision Zero action planning and reporting. Next slide, please. So there are a number of projects that are going on right now that will go into the next fiscal year, which starts in July, and that's the data performance monitoring and project evaluation, the data portal for crash data, as well as an equity scorecard with Cutter that we're working on. The Plant City Transit Feasibility Study is going to span both years as well as the Vision Zero corridor studies for unincorporated Hillsborough County. And as well, we're working on the regional LRTP right now. Next slide, please. So there is the entire work program online, and a lot of it's our compliance activity, but a big part of it is these 6 tasks that comprise of what we spend our federal and state funding on. And just quickly, task 1 is from left to right, is our transportation planning management task, and that's the work program, all the compliance activities that go along with that. Task 2 is where you see most of the projects I talked about for system and corridor planning. So everything from the ITS to resiliency to the non-motorized planning to freight, transit, TDM, TD, and corridor and sub-area environmental studies fall into this task. Task 3 is our 20-year long-range transportation plan and data collection activities. And task 4 is our transportation improvement plan, which you just heard an amendment for. And this is coordinated with the state transportation improvement plan. Task 5 is our public participation, all the good work that committees does, as well as our USF fellowship program, all our website, newsletter, publication activity, and outreach. And task 6 finally is our local and regional coordination and planning. So all our local and state and federal planning agencies all go here. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give you a sense of how those 6 tasks, major tasks, fall into the funding that we spend. So over 60% of that goes into long-range transportation planning, that bright yellow, and system corridor planning, that light blue. And then when you add the rest, transportation improvement plan, the public participation, and the local and regional coordination, that comprises almost 90% of all the planning we do, aside from the compliance activities. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot of what our budget for staff and planning projects look like for the next 2 years. The first 3 rows, PL stands for planning, STP is surface transportation policy, and then FTA is Federal Transit Administration. That's our federal allocation. And then we have Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, that's our TD planning. So in fiscal year 2021, starting July and ending next June, including money that we are moving over from this year because projects aren't finished in next year, it's about $2.8 million. For the second fiscal year, it's approximately $2.3 million. Next slide, please. So you remember in February and March, we came to all the committees and asked them, for project ideas and to make motions with ones that you had consensus on. So this is a summary of what came out of that process. BPAC asked for best practices of street sweeping and maintenance for bike lane infrastructure. The Livable Roadways Committee talked about right-size parking calculators, best practices in electric vehicle charging. They wanted continual audits in the school safety study, as well as this one's really important to them, the safety and park speed zone study. And CAC wanted a study of uniform buffered bike lanes and standards countywide. And this committee, if you recall, wanted to look at local levels, local projects with respect to vulnerability and resiliency assessments, and coordinating that, with resiliency studies that are already going on in the county and being planned, and planning that's going on in the county. Next slide, please. The jurisdictions also were asked to submit requests. For Hillsborough County, we're previously requested the county-wide truck route study and a study of Lumsden Boulevard. City of Tampa asked for a comprehensive school safety study for 5 schools in the city of Tampa, as well as a speed management program before and after studies, Vision Zero corridor studies and roadway safety assessments in the city, green infrastructure research and best practices report, as well as a transportation innovation series. Also to look at advanced parking management systems, a feasibility study regarding that. Temple Terrace requested a trail feasibility and alignment study from Temple Terrace to the University of South Florida, and an update to their multimodal mobility fee. Plant City also reprised some requests from 2019, looking at the Florida Strawberry Festival special use transportation study and a canal connector trail feasibility study. For HART, there's a number of projects, and they kind of belong in our task 2 for transit and transportation management. That's a subtask of the planning task 2. And we're looking at bus stop inventory of assessments, tri-area circulator project, an on-demand downtown circulator, the CSX rail study, ferry services study, and streetcar extension study. Next slide, please. So per our federal compliance activities, we have a number of projects that we are calling critical path projects and their associated analysis. And we've estimated those for the next fiscal year to be about $615,000. And from top to bottom, they are data performance, monitoring, project evaluation activities, data analytics, smart cities, the ITS master plan, traffic counts for Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa, as well as transportation disadvantage planning. We're also funding, as part of our community engagement, the USF Department of Urban Planning fellowship programs, Vision Zero implementation reporting, and to complete, of course, I mentioned earlier, the Plant City Transit Plan, and our coordination activity with the other regional MPOs, so the MPO Chairs Coordinating Committee. Next slide, please. There are a number of studies that are potential studies that we could do based on requests that we've heard. So most prominent among them is the I-275 Boulevard conversion study. If you had seen earlier versions of this presentation, before we were able to discuss this issue further with DOT, the entire phase of the study was going to be up to $1 million. But we've since been able to, through further discussions, bring that down to a preliminary phase 1 for the study for $150,000. Other studies on this list have been mentioned include community impacts for the health impacts for the 2045 LRTP, update of the storm evacuation forecast and shelter-in-place scenarios, a freight supply chain mapping and resilience pilot project, multimodal school safety reviews, trail feasibility studies, USF Temple Terrace and the Upper Tampa Bay Trail to Town and Country Gateway, electric vehicle facility needs assessment, the Plant City Southeast Master Plan transportation analysis, and the HART bus stop assessment. So that is just under $1 million for these projects, just on this slide. One click on the slide, please. Okay. What we have available after I showed you the critical path projects being funded after staff costs is just almost 900,000, so just slightly below that. So what we asked at the last MPO meeting last week was that board members would take a look at all the projects that were requested. So these potential projects, plus the ones requested by jurisdictions and the committees, and think about their top 5 preferences so that we know, have some sense of priority to what to move forward with the budget we have. And next slide, please. This is our schedule where all the committees are seeing the draft work program in April. The adoption is May 13th, and the work program would become effective July 1st. Next slide, please. So I know that we've asked you, typically we would ask you to make a recommendation and move this document forward to the MPO. I guess as the chair and Sarah had mentioned earlier, what we're asking for is comments on this, so we have some direction moving forward. But you can also, decide to make a comment about moving the document forward to the MPO for final adoption. Thank you.
Okay, is that it, Allison?
That's it. So.
Okay, very good. Wasn't quite sure if you were finished there. All right, well, I greatly appreciate hearing all that. At least initially, I want to start off by appreciation for logging what the different committees had previously said. I would like to reiterate that I think the vulnerability and resiliency studies being done locally, in conjunction with the other ones that are being performed is a very important and is going to continue to be important as we go forward. So that's something I definitely appreciate that you've got documented. Sarah, could you back the slides up to where it has the potential studies, please? Yeah, either one of those, one forward.
This one.
No, the one that says some potential studies. Allison, those were the ones you kind of wanted us to look at as far as our top 5, correct?
Right, and so these are the ones that we have just a little less money than we thought we would for. And then there's also the committee projects and the jurisdiction requests that don't have any money tied to them right now.
Okay. Before I open it up to committee, one of the ones that I also agree I think is really important that the LRC brought up was the safety and park speed zone study. Is that captured somewhere on here?
Not in this list of potential studies, but it's captured in the committee requests.
Okay.
Committee motion. Yeah.
Okay. I think my last comment again before I open it up, looking at these on the slide, the update storm evacuation forecast and shelter in place scenarios, it seems especially topical right now because of the essentially semi-shelter in place that we're in. I certainly, again, tying it into resiliency and so forth, I think personally, I feel like that's an important one. And then again, for me, the electrical vehicle facilities needs assessment, I think is something that needs to continue to grow because we have a pretty small footprint with that locally. And it's something that I believe we need to grow with as that technology is becoming more and more popular. So with that, I will open it up to the committee for comments. Someone, I know you're out there.
This is Sarah. I actually have a comment because we have in this committee had some, I guess, inquiries about our traffic counts and when those would be going on. The reason the amount for the traffic counts is so large in the next fiscal year is because we were supposed to be doing counts right now, and we've deobligated those funds to next year, so that we'll just do a, I guess, quote unquote, double batch and focus on the ones we identified for the county that should be gone on right now, plus focus on the city counts, because we normally can do all of the counts for the county in about 3 rounds. So instead, we'll just do 2 rounds at once next year, and that's why that amount is larger than normal.
Yeah, that amount, actually, that slide with the critical path studies, that's for 2 years. So, yeah. So we're trying to think about all the costs that we have to encompass in this entire work program. There's somebody.
Okay.
Hey, Allison, this is Mike Williams.
Hey, Mike.
And this is just more of a question so I can understand.
Yeah.
The I-275 Boulevard Conversion Study, how is what the MPO would be doing different than what DOT is doing? Because I know they're doing some stuff, and what are they doing versus what you're doing with that, or would be doing?
Yeah, I'm going to give a summary, but Beth might jump in for more details. This is a preliminary kind of almost like a critical flaw study, preliminary study we have to do to make sure the project is even feasible. So previously there was going to be a much larger technical study that we have to do. We're actually doing this with guidance from DOT. Beth, jump in if I'm not giving enough of a detailed assessment, but I don't have the scope of what DOT is doing, but this is, us vetting what we're doing through them. I would have to get back to you with the exact scope of what they're doing.
So if I could paraphrase, then it's really more you're coordinating and working with them and maybe sort of dividing up the work somehow. And it's not, in other words, it's not something opposing what DOT is doing, or it's just really working with them and more a matter of how things need to be split up because of the role of the MPO versus what DOT's role and all of that, if I understand.
Well, this is Beth. I could maybe add some other information if that's all right, Jeff. So when you say what DOT is working on, you're referring to the project to add one lane in each direction on I-275 north of downtown Tampa. Is that right, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. So what we've been talking about with District 7 is that is the short term, the near term priority. And that if we're looking at some major change in what I-275 would look like north of downtown Tampa, it would be very long term, might not even be within the horizon of the 2045 long range plan. So it would be, potentially looking out farther than that. District 7 would prefer actually for the MPO to lead that kind of study. And this initial step would be just better defining what it is that the community wants looked at and what are all of the technical evaluations that would need to be done. So it ultimately would come back with a list of follow-on phases, and we would then be able to generate a cost estimate for the follow-on phases to see if there's interest in going on to a future phase.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Oh, I was just
can you
going to
state
add
your last name for the record?
Mike Williams.
Earlier, that was Beth Alden, if that's what you're asking. If I could just add,
thank you.
Okay, if I could just add quickly that all these projects that we work on, the nature, because we receive federal and state funding, they have to go through the Department of Transportation, District 7, and the Federal Highway Administration before they're approved, before we can go forward with any of these consultant projects. So we would definitely have to coordinate with the DOT. That's for all these projects, any of the projects we do, really.
Okay, very good. Do we have any other comments? Check the chat here, make sure. Okay, no other comments from the committee? Kind of surprised. Okay, Allison, do you have enough to go by from us, or do you need us to fully rank? Like, do you truly want 5 ranked from these, or?
No, the MPO board members would rank 5 from these, but if, Jeff, you brought up a number of projects you think you would like, for example, when we do committee reports to float to the surface for consideration, I wonder if the committee is in agreement with that as well? Could,
is the committee in agreement with that? Maybe I'll ask Mike as the vice chair.
Yeah, yes.
okay.
I guess let me ask this, is anybody, I kind of like the voting, let me say more like this, does anybody have issues or comments that they don't feel comfortable with the items up earlier? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, so I think we can take that as a representation for the committee.
Okay. Sarah, do we need to do anything else as far as actions other than the comments?
I don't think so.
It's your item, so I guess it's up to you what action you would want.
Well, I guess I would like for everybody to agree to move this forward to the MPO for adoption, this draft document.
Yeah, because technically this is an action item.
Yeah. Right.
That's fine. I thought in one of the previous meetings that it wasn't voted on, but I don't think our committee will have a problem. We'll find out. Can I get a motion to recommend approval of the draft of this UPWP going forward?
Nicole McCleary, motion of approval to recommend the draft to move forward.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Jay Collins. I'll second that motion.
Very good. Thank you, Jay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Just making sure you're awake. Do we have any opposed? Okay, I think we have it concluded.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Allison. All right, the last scheduled item is the annual certification of the MPO planning process. That's either Rich or John.
Hillsborough MPO. I'm standing in for Rich Clarendon to give the presentation. I'm assuming you all can hear me because I see you nodding your head. So I'm going to explain the MPO FDOT joint certification and review the findings of that process with you all. Next slide, please. All right, the MPO has many responsibilities assigned to it under federal and state law. And with that comes some requirements. Each year we work with FDOT to ensure that we're meeting all those requirements under specific laws. And that process happens every year. And then every fourth year we go through a more comprehensive review. At that comprehensive review, we kind of get treated to a site visit from Federal Highway Administration reviewers. They sit with us for a couple of days to go through in more detail everything that we produce. The joint certification is a parsed down version of that. It's basically an interim report card. The reviewers use it as an opportunity to note anything that we do that they feel is extraordinary. Either FDOT or Federal Highway can identify either recommended or corrective actions if they find that we're not meeting all the requirements. It's a fairly extensive checklist, and we submit that to both the state and Federal Highway for review. And if they find that we successfully completed the process, that allows us to maintain our eligibility for federal funding. Next slide, please. So we have nothing but good news to report to you. We got a good report card, and we want to share some of the gold stars that got discussed during the review. Next slide, please. So in this presentation, I'm going to share several of the achievements that were noted by our reviewers. The first of which is the Resilient Tampa Bay Transportation Plan, which was highlighted by the reviewers as a notable study. Hillsborough MPO is one of 19 MPOs around the country to have won extra funding to do a study on vulnerability and criticality of our transportation network. We use those funds to collaborate with Pinellas and Pasco counties. So we made this a tri-county effort, and with the other two counties, we assessed vulnerabilities to flooding and sea level rise, and analyzed what that means for our transportation system and the region's economic viability. We presented this information to you back last November. We included the findings of this study in our long-range transportation plan. The results of this study fell under the system preservation program, and we discussed what the impacts would be to certain critical and vulnerable roadways. We led this initiative, and since wrapping it up, we participated in peer exchanges to discuss what we learned. The study was also recognized by the MPO Advisory Council as a noteworthy practice winner, and it's been designated as a best practice by Federal Highway Administration. Next slide, please. The second thing that was highlighted in our review was the online public survey that we launched for the 2045 long-range plan. That summer, we used an online survey tool called MetroQuest to ask people about which priority projects they think should be included in our long-range plan. We recruited participants by using targeted social media ads on both Facebook and Twitter, and then we complemented those efforts with a boots-on-the-ground approach. We concentrated the boots-on-the-ground approach primarily in our communities of concern. We really focused on vulnerable communities because we want to engage demographic groups which are usually underrepresented in surveys like this. As a result, we provided the survey in multiple languages. We also did intercept surveys at hard stations, and all of our staff participated in ride-alongs on the buses to get feedback from people who are actually riding the bus. After the survey wrapped up, we discovered that we had received responses from more than 5,000 people, which is a considerable amount for a survey like this. And we also hit a secondary goal of increasing participation among hard-to-reach populations. The results in 2019, when compared to 2014, were a marked improvement. We increased responses by 40% among African-American residents and by more than 70% among our Hispanic residents. Next slide, please. The third notable practice, or the third achievement that was highlighted, was the Gulf Coast Safe Streets Summit that we hosted at the downtown Hilton. That was a collaboration among 6 MPOs who came together to share their experiences for planning for safety. To bolster the amount of attendees, we poached some attendees who were attending the National Safe Routes to School conference that same week. So piggybacking off of the Safe Routes to School effort, we brought them into the Gulf Coast Safe Streets Summit. And in the end, we had more than 400 safety advocates attend, and they participated in Vision Zero-based discussions. Next slide, please. We were also highlighted for our target setting process that we use to comply with MAP 21 requirements. That process was recognized by the Federal Highway Florida Division, and they noted in particular our target setting methodology. We've discussed this with you before. I think we set the safety targets in January of this year, and that's something that we do each year. We were recognized for using a data-driven process to target setting. We adapted that methodology from our long-range transportation plan. And Hillsborough is one of only 8 MPOs around the state to use a data-driven process like this. Most of the MPOs around the state, concur with Florida DOT's targets of 0. We opted to go a different route, and we use historical and future crash data to predict what our targets are, to predict our performance, and then we use that to create targets each year. Last November, we hosted a workshop in our office, and attendees from DOT, Federal Highway, and some MPOs around the state attended. We used that venue to share our techniques for collecting and analyzing crash data, and we also described to them how we predict crash rates in the future. Next slide, please. And lastly, we got kudos for our Healthiest Cities and Counties Challenge, aka the Garden Steps. That Garden Steps is an outcome from our Health in All Policies program. In 2019, we were awarded a grant from Aetna, And receiving funds from an insurance company is a first for us, and so we were recognized for our efforts to secure that grant. And that money is allowing us to continue our work trying to expand access to healthy foods and food deserts using a three-pronged approach focusing on education, agriculture, and mobility options. Last slide. So they highlighted a lot of the work that we do. We were provided with 2 recommendations by FDOT, but both are positive. The first recommendation is regarding risk assessment, meaning the financial risk to FDOT for providing grants to us for planning purposes. FDOT considers us in the low risk category, and DOT reviewers recommended that we remain there. That's a positive takeaway because it indicates that the invoices we submit and all the other documentation that we provide is always in order, and they'd like that to continue. And the second recommendation is that our MPO is known for being innovative and for leading the charge to facilitate safety for all different travel modes, and they recommended that we continue that as well. So they really want us to stay innovative and ambitious. Next slide, please. We got no corrective actions, so from that standpoint, we're all good, meaning that we're not doing anything incorrectly. We only got praise. Next slide. One more. All right, this is an action item. This is primarily just for your information. You can't actually change the findings of the certification, so the action that we're looking for you all to take is just to concur that we're in compliance and that you support our recertification as an MPO. To break that down a little bit more, the action means that you all recognize that we're in compliance with federal and state laws regarding MPOs, that you support the recertification of the MPO, and that you authorize the chair to sign the joint certification statement allowing us to stay in business. So I guess at this time, let us know if you have any objections or comments about what is shown on the screen now. And if you don't have any objections, I can answer questions or Sarah can take the roll call vote.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. I had to unmute. Okay, yeah, very good. You mentioned that we didn't have the ability to change the findings, and I I had to laugh because I can't see why we would have anybody would want to have those changed. That's an outstanding summary and report, very positive reflection on MPO. I think the fact that you know what results in almost like a mini audit, and you have a corrective actions of 0 is usually, that is not found very often. There's almost always some corrective actions that somebody finds when they do a review. So to have none is quite an accomplishment. So with that, do we have any questions from the committee?
This is Nicole McCleary. I actually just had one question, and I wanted to know what languages the survey was provided in.
Primarily Spanish. We have an interpreter that we have an ongoing contract with. So we proactively produced hard copy surveys in Spanish. Virtual was not a possibility, but we also created a Spanish speaking hotline so that if they didn't have access to a hard copy, but still wanted to take the survey in Spanish, they could call us up and we'd talk them through it. We had made arrangements proactively to also offer it up in, I believe Haitian Creole was one that we discussed. I think Vietnamese was another that we discussed. We didn't have any requests for it, but we had that staff made available beforehand in case we did. So I guess 4 languages in total.
Very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else with a question? Okay, with that, I guess we'll move forward with the motion. I think the easiest way would be to do a motion, unless anybody objects, mimicking the language on the screen in front of us. Does anyone want to take the lead on that?
Jeff, this is Mike Williams. I'll move approval.
I'd probably be a little more specific. Say approval. Can you state the motion, please?
I'm sorry, certainly. Move approval of the requested action that's on the slide. So the first will be finding that the MPO is in compliance with federal and state laws. Secondly, that the committee supports recertification of the MPO. And thirdly, we would support the chair signing the joint certification statement.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second on that?
Seconded, Nicole McCleary.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. With that, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And do we have anyone opposed? Okay, very good. My only other question is to you, Johnny. Did you read all those books behind you?
Did I what?
Did you read all those books behind you?
You know, the ones on the bottom shelf are medical textbooks for my wife, but I think just about all others I have. At least portions of it.
Very impressive. Well, you got plenty of time right now, probably being at home to catch up in any on the bottom shelf. So, all right, thank you for that report.
Have a good one.
All right, thank you. Okay, I guess the next, well, there's no new items per se, so I guess we would go into new business and old business. So, does anybody from the committee have anything they'd like to speak? Or would you like to share any stories about any of your experiences being at home? Okay. With that, I think we can move toward adjournment. Unless anyone has an objection, I'll give you a final 5 seconds to speak up. Okay, Sarah, do you have anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, very good. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Hopefully by the May meeting, we may be more face-to-face, but that's obviously an unknown at this point. So if not, we'll keep fighting the fight electronically, and I'm glad we can all get together. So thank you very much. With that, I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.